My guest for classical conversations today is the soprano Fotina Naumenko, fresh off her Grammy nomination in the Best Classical Solo Vocal Album category for her recent release, Bespoke Songs. It's a world premiere recording. It's got different works by different composers, as well as lots of libretto-oriented stuff to go with it. I wonder if you can give us, Fotina, a little bit of a background on this album.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so happy to speak with you today and share about this project. So the idea for this album came during the 2020 pandemic when a lot of my work was canceled. We were all isolated, and I spent a lot of time recording myself singing individual tracks that were then spliced with other musicians' individual tracks. Um, and I was very grateful for that work, but it was quite a lonely experience. And so I started dreaming about making music with as many friends as possible once that was available to us again. So the idea for collaborating with living composers, with friends of mine whose music I'd admired for a long time, came to me. And then also the idea of a chamber music album where it was voice and many different instruments together, so that I could once again collaborate with as many friends as possible. So that was the sort of the seed of the idea for this album. And of course, I began with the commissions because before we could work together, that was the perfect time for these commissions to be discussed and written. And so we had a couple of years to really bring this music to life. And then for the next couple of years, of course, we had premieres of the pieces, we lived with the pieces, and then we recorded them for the album. So really, this was an extended almost 5 year project that we all went through.
Well, the music and the idea is amazing. It's wonderful. It's very listenable, even though it's written by living composers, right? You commission
Yes.
these folks to write these things with lots of weird instrumentations and different instrumentations for each song. I wonder if you chose, or I'm asking you to sort of channel the composer even more here. I wonder if you chose your texts based on a certain idea, or if they had, an idea of what they wanted to do in mind.
Yeah, it depended on the composer, but that was a conversation I had with each of my composer colleagues because I wanted to be inspired by the text, but even more so, I wanted my composers to be inspired by the text because they're the ones that have to come up with the music to create this sound world. So for some of the pieces, we chose them together. For Benedict Sheehan's piece with the Jane Kenyon poems, we each ordered a Jane Kenyon poetry book, and then we bookmarked some poems that we were interested in. And surprisingly, a lot of the ones that we ended up choosing, those overlapped. So those four poems that we chose, we both were drawn to. So it worked out. With the other compositions, I think Carrie and I decided together. Jonathan and I, that was the most fun actually that we had with choosing the lyrics because we chose poetry from female authors all over the course of like 2 millennia. And of course, that's very scattered. And so, in order to bring that all together with a through storyline, we actually commissioned a lyricist to create small vignette poems interspersed to kind of create that through line narrative. So that was really the most fun because traditionally, of course, with a song cycle, it's one composer, one lyricist. But with Jonathan Newman's piece, it was a little bit off the beaten path, which was really fun.
Yeah. And you had to sing in different languages, right? Was that difficult for you at all?
I mean, it's one of my favorite things. It's why I was drawn to classical singing in the first place. I love that singing and acting and languages are all combined in one art form, so I really thrive on that. But I did have to hire people to help me with those different languages. So the Korean especially, and the Russian, that's my background, so that was okay. The Hebrew I had to get some help with. So it was really fun to explore that, but it was definitely more homework on my end to make sure I was honoring and doing an accurate job of those languages.
Yeah. Maybe tell your listeners a little bit about yourself because this is the first time that they'll be introduced to you for many people. I wonder if you can give us a little of your background or your early memories. I mean, did you come from a musical family, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I did come from a musical family. No one in my family is a professional musician, but everybody sang in the church where I grew up. My father's an Eastern Orthodox priest, and a lot of the liturgical chant is so integral to that tradition. So my father would chant in church. My mom is the choir director at his church, so I was always underfoot when I was little in that environment. So I started singing. Honestly, I don't even remember when I started singing because it was so early. So I kind of grew up as a choir kid and got more into opera as I went to college, but then came back to my roots as a choir kid, and really where I live as a singer is um, new music, early music, professional ensemble music, and some solo work like with oratorio and recital work. So that's kind of a background of where I started and what I'm most interested in my singing career.
Well, you're also a teacher, right? And a mentor to your students at Shenandoah University. I wonder if you can talk
Correct.
about your musical philosophy that you impart on them or try to impart on them.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, you're right. I have also the privilege of not only doing this myself, but helping other people do this. And I've always been really interested in the voice and how it works. I think some people are kind of born with their technique all lined up. I was not one of those people, so I had to kind of build my technical skills through my education, which at the time I didn't love. You want to already be be a finished product. But now I love because I had to build my singing technique brick by brick, and so I really got to know how to do that. And so this really helps me with my students because if they need technical help, I'm able to do that because I had to do it myself. So I see myself with my students as their primary vocal technician. So I make sure that the expression that they want to put out into the world is made as easy as possible by how they're using their voice. So that's really what I'm passionate about helping my students find is freedom of expression because they get to know their instrument and have a really wide toolbox of techniques to be able to use.
Yeah, well, your freedom of expression is on full display in this album. It's a wonderful collection. I wonder if we can talk about the title of the album as a whole, which comes from Jonathan Newman's cycle, Bespoke Songs. We usually think of bespoke like a bespoke suit or something to do with, material. I wonder
Mhm.
how it applies to songs and who came up with that idea of calling it bespoke songs.
Yeah, so I have to admit I had to look up that word the first time I read the poem that had it. So I looked it up and I realized it meant tailor-made, which I really loved. It came from one of Christina Faust's poems that she wrote for Jonathan Newman's cycle. Um, Pigeons were cooing bespoke songs to the lovers. I think that's in movement 3 of bespoke songs. So bespoke means tailor made, and I loved that because each of these songs were tailor made for me by my composer colleagues, and so it felt like it was relevant because it's the title of one of the cycles, but also it has meaning for the rest of the pieces, which were also tailor made for me. So that's why I chose it.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about your collaborations earlier on. I wonder if there's anybody you want to name check or that you want to throw out there that you really enjoyed working with on this recording.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean I enjoyed working with everyone, so I don't want to single anyone out. So I think actually the collaboration I want to talk about is How to See an Angel. I think this was probably the most unusual instrumentation where we have solo soprano, we have bassoon, and we have piano. So Ryan Romine on bassoon, Marika Bernacki on piano. When you think of angelic music, I think the first instruments that come to mind are maybe like harp and flute, and little cupids flitting about and playing their harps. And um, I gave Carrie the task of this instrumentation. I think I was the one that requested it because I really wanted to work with my colleague Ryan, who teaches here at Shenandoah with me. And I was like, I just really want to sing this song with Ryan. So I tasked Carrie with making the bassoon angelic. So that's what we decided to do. And she came up with this awesome like earthiness. Like it is still like an atmospheric and like spiritual piece that she created, but less cupids, less harps, and more of this kind of like a grounded, like earthy quality that I think was so amazing. So I was really happy with that result because I think it was a tall order that I gave Carrie to create with this instrument that doesn't necessarily have that sort of connotation naturally in what we expect.
Yeah, well, it definitely catches the ear to hear the bassoon with the soprano. You may have recorded the first example of a soprano with bassoon. I don't know, but that's
Well, the bassoon
wonderful.
was used in different ways, like as part of continuo throughout history. So it's been used in different ways, but I wanted to highlight the bassoon, and Ryan has this beautiful, rich sound that he brings out of the instrument, and so I'm so happy with that result.
Yeah. Well, spoken like a former bassoonist, I think you did a great job. And
Oh,
I
good.
used to also be an opera singer, so I feel connected a little bit with this album. It's wonderful. It's called Bespoke Songs, and it's available from New Focus Recordings and all the streaming services. We'll link to that as well on our website. So we're about to wrap things up, and I'd like to play a track of something for people. Do you have any choice that you would like to leave listeners with?
Oh, let's see. Hmm.
Maybe
How
it's
much time do we have?
as much as we want.
Okay, gosh. Oh, it's hard to pick favorites. It's like picking a favorite child. Um,
Yeah.
I think I really like number 5 from Jonathan Newman. If a um if a
A
lover
lover
brings an
brings an
orange.
orange. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that one. It's just this like perfect little vignette. And I love the rhythmic quality that Jonathan brings to it. You mentioned at the beginning of our interview that you liked that it's listenable. I also like that. I think sometimes new music can get the reputation of it's kind of esoteric, it's hard to understand. For me, I always want to have something to grab onto in these new pieces, whether that's rhythm, whether that's a really lyrical melody. So all the composers that I worked with always have something accessible that the listener can really latch onto with their ears. And with Jonathan, it's often rhythm. And so number 5 of Jonathan Newman's cycle is really beautifully rhythmic. And I also just really enjoy the charming imagery of Christina Faust's poem. So that's one of my favorites.
Fotina Naumenko, thank you so much for joining us. It's a wonderful album, and as I said before, we'll link to that on our website so people know where to go. Thank you again for
Wonderful.
bringing on Classical Conversations.
Thank you so much, and thank you for listening.